Frequently asked question number 17. How long should the succulent soil stay wet? Now guys, once you have watered the succulent soil, it should stay wet long enough so that the succulent can have or absorb that water. Now ideally the soil should stay wet, or the soil will stay wet for around 2 to 3 hours. Like basically the moment you have done a top watering, the soil will be soggy wet for around 2 to 3 hours, after which let's say after 24 hours the soil will be moist wet. So you need to understand soggy wet and moist wet. Now initially when you are going to water in 2 to 3 hours, the soil will still be very soggy wet. After 24 hours it's going to be moist wet, and after that the upper layer of soil will start to dry out much faster, because it's on the upper layer, the sunlight tends to hit it, there's a lot of breeze, there's a lot of air, there's a lot of air circulation, so the upper layer of soil will dry out much faster. Now just by looking at the upper layer of soil, that is the wrong mistake what a lot of us tend to do. We see that the upper layer of soil is dry, so we go ahead and water. Now guys, you need to understand the entire pot is going to take some time for it to dry. Even though the upper layer, let's say around 2 to 3 inches of the soil is dry from the upper surface, depending upon your environment and climate, but the soil is going to stay moist beneath. Now ideally it's going to take some time for the soil to dry out completely. That's the reason why we say the soil has to be bone dry before watering. Because even though the upper layer of soil is completely dry, the soil beneath, the soil at the lower level is still going to be moist. Now it's not going to be soggy wet, it's not going to be moist wet, but it is going to be barely moist, which is going to be at the bottom of the pot. Now if the soil is not completely dry, let's say that the bottom part of the soil is still moist. I'm not saying that it's soggy wet or it is moist wet, but it's barely moist. Even that can be dangerous for your succulent. Because I've seen a lot of people tell me this, that I watered my succulent last week and today the succulent is rotting. Now the succulent is not getting rotted because you watered 1 week back, but probably you have been following this practice of watering your soil once a week without checking if the soil is completely bone dry. A lot of times, again, depends upon the type of pot, the soil, the environment, the climate that you're from, the type of soil that you have used. A lot of times the bottom layer of the soil does not dry, it still stays slightly moist. Now if you're going to continue keep watering every week without letting the bottom soil dry, you are basically overwatering your succulent. That is why give it a good amount of time. Ideally the soil will take some time to dry, completely bone dry. It is not going to happen very quick. Again, that depends from season to season. At times in summers, if the environment is very dry, the complete pot soil will dry within 3 to 4 days. But that same thing cannot be said during the monsoon season or during the winter season. At times during winter season, it can even take 2 weeks for the complete soil to get bone dry. So you need to understand that there is no thumb rule or there is no universal rule that you have to water your succulents only once a week. The universal rule is for most succulents, when the soil is completely bone dry is when you tend to water. So probably over here the mistake what the person might have done has been continued watering the succulent every week without letting the bottom layer of the soil to dry. So at all given point of time, the soil was moist, even barely moist, the soil was still moist, and that's the reason why the succulent might have got rotted. So guys, be very careful. Look out what variety of succulent you have. Succulents that have thin leaves would require a little bit more frequent watering. Succulents that are green in color would require a little bit more frequent watering. And succulents that are very chubby, a lot of succulents like moonstones, pachyphytums, they have very chubby leaves, which means that they do not require more watering. So there is going to be a lot of things. I cannot give you a straight answer that this is what the watering is, because you have to check what type of succulent you have, what type of leaves they have, whether they have thin leaves, whether they have chubby leaves, whether they have really strong colors, whether you're keeping them in direct sunlight, whether you're keeping them in direct light. All of these factors play a very important role when you tend to water your succulents. So there isn't a straight point answer wherein I can say that okay, you just water your succulents every week or you just water your succulents every 4 days, because there are a lot of factors apart from the type of succulent, apart from the type of pot, apart from the type of soil, your season, your climate, how much hours of sunlight that particular succulent gets. These all factors play a very important role in watering your succulent. So So don't follow what others are saying. Some people, it might be working out really well watering once a week. Probably their environment or their soil or their pot is in such a way wherein they are okay watering it once a week. But probably you are in a different location, in a different climate. Your soil is different, your pot is different, your succulent is different. It has a different requirement of watering. So never check with others what is their watering schedule. This is something that you have to work on, and this is going to happen over the period of time. Once you get a hang of the succulents, once you get that experience, you will be able to handle and water your succulents effectively. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button, and thank you so much for watching.